So 2 weeks ago, the Squad Infantry Combat Overhaul released, otherwise known as the Squad ICO update. It had some mixed reactions online. I wanted to find out more about the people who were leaving the feedback, and that's what we're going to look at today. First of all, we're going to check out the data so you understand where this is all coming from and you can make your own decisions on its reliability or not, its strengths, its weaknesses. Any feedback, stick it in the comments, please. Then we're going to jump into the demographics. Then we're going to see if we can form any conclusions. Firstly, a quick introduction. So there is a section of the Squad community who have not liked the ICO update, and they have been quite vocal. There has also been assumptions made about who these people are, and some of it has been derogatory. There's been a lot of stereotyping, and frankly, it's been fairly unpleasant. And what I aim to do was to reach out, see if we can find out a little bit more about people who both like and dislike the update, learn a bit more about the community that we're a part of and where we're at with everything with this game and this update. What we're not going to do is jump into whether the update really is good or not and which parts of the update are good and which should change. That's a conversation for another day. I'm an opinionated person. I have an opinion on it, but I'm going to try and leave that at the door. I encourage you to do the same and see if we can learn anything from the data. I found much of it surprising, and I hope you also find it very interesting. First of all, let's jump and look at the data. So I set up this Google form. I shared it on the Squad Steam forum. I shared it on the Join Squad Reddit, which some say has more of a lean towards Project Reality players, and I shared it on the Play Squad Reddit, which some say has more of a lean towards the competitive squad players. The idea was that I wanted to give people from all the different subsections of the squad community equal opportunity to find the link and leave their feedback. We'll quickly run through the questions and then we'll look at the overall summaries of the feedback of this form. First question, did you like the update or not? What year did you buy the game? Did you start playing? How many hours have you got in squad? Have you played squad for more than 10 hours? So the theory here was that if people have tried Project Reality, I've tried it myself. If you've got past 10 hours, chances are that you liked it and you wanted to keep playing it. And I use this question to section out those people who have played and enjoyed Project Reality. Have you ever been involved in any sort of competitive squad play? I use this section. I'm not aiming just for the hardcore competitive players, but anyone that's been interested in that section of the community. And then lastly, are you a whitelisted member of a squad community? Usually people who play in the game a lot and very invested in the game and enjoying it. Responses, you can see I had 133. I wanted at least 30. 133 was great. I was happy with that, but it could be more. Link in the description if you want to add to a new survey and see if we can get more responses, more accurate data. Quick look at the responses. We see 40% of people that responded didn't like the ICO update, which is surprisingly high. The year people started playing, when I first put this up, there was a lot of people from 2015, but it started to balance out. We can see we have responses from people who bought in every single year. Number of hours playing squad, also quite a nice spread. We've got people who've less than 100 hours in the game, new players, all the way up to over 4,000 hours. A third of people have played a decent amount of Project Reality. Under 30% of people have been involved in any competitive play, and around about a 50-50 split in whitelist members of a squad community. So we jump into the demographics now of who did like it and who didn't like it. Let's start with the Project Reality players. Reasonably unsurprisingly, people who've played and enjoyed Project Reality are in favor of the ICO update. And of people who haven't played much Project Reality or any Project Reality is around a 50-50 split about whether they did or didn't like the ICO. What about the competitive players? I was really shocked by this. 50-50 split of liking or disliking the ICO update among players who play or have played competitive squad. And of players that haven't played competitive squad, more inclined to like the ICO update. Let's look at the whitelisted. Of those whitelisted, another 50-50 split. This could be a reflection of the previous competitive players because people involved in competitive squad tend to be part of a clan who runs a server, but there are plenty of servers out there that have from groups or hosted by individuals for the casual community that don't play competitive squad. So we've got a 50-50 split again, and of players with no whitelist, there is a lean towards favour for the ICO update. By player hours now, reasonably unsurprisingly again, those with more hours in squad are more inclined to dislike the ICO update. Makes sense because if someone bought the game and they were hoping it was going to be like Project Reality, they found it wasn't when they were playing it, might not play so much, might go back to play Project Reality or whatever game they prefer. Those who played it and liked it put a lot more time in. Lastly, how about the year that people purchased the game? Now, I found this graph fascinating and very surprising. So we're going to dive into quite a bit more detail and see if we can figure out why there is such a strong flip-flop in the like and dislike based on the year of purchase. So we can see that there's strong favor for the ICO update in 2015 and 2018, and a vice versa dislike of the ICO update at other periods. More recently, it's gone towards 50-50. I don't know if this is due to lack of numbers or a genuine 50-50 split. Again, the link to the new form is in the comments if you want to add your voice. Let's dive into this in more detail now. So the game actually released in December 2015. So of those players who bought the game in 2015, they bought it in the first month of release. I think that it's a reasonably fair assumption that most of these players knew about Squad because they either played or wanted to play a game like they either played Project Reality or they wanted to play a game like Project Reality, a more modern version. So they bought in when Squad was being heavily marketed as the spiritual successor to PR. Now, in the following year, it flip-flops, and people who bought in 2016 are more likely to dislike the ICO. Now, when Squad released, it was quite simple because they'd only just started making it, no surprise there. Which is to say, it was more of a standard first-person shooter. It takes time for developers to build all the systems, and they didn't initially build systems to make it play in the same way that Project Reality did. And there's a chance that the people that bought the game in the first year or so enjoyed it being more of a standard first-person shooter game. There is a big change then in 2018 where we see a huge favor for the ICO update and the more Project Reality style gameplay. Now, what happened in 2018? We see that 2018 was the release of Alpha 10 in early 2018. Now, this was the release of the animation update, and many may know that this was OWI's first attempt to bring into Squad systems which replicated the Project Reality style of system, in the hope of recreating that kind of gameplay. Alpha 10, that included a suppression system, and it included weapon sway. Now, maybe that is why the 2018 purchasers of the game are so in favor of the ICO update, but I must add, for fairness, that just 2 months later, Alpha 11 released, because the Alpha 10 release also caused controversy and debate online, and many of those changes were rolled back. The weapon sway was reduced, for example. Now, there's still a strong favour for the ICO update in the following year. But interestingly, it was in this year where we had the buddy rally and the removal of Dead, which was seen by many people right across the community as being an attempt to appeal to a broader audience. And I believe that that has been acknowledged in various posts by OWI staff, developers. And yet there is still a strong favour for support for the ICO update. And it wasn't until 2019 where we had 15.4, which was a reintroduction of Dead, and Beta 18, which was the removal of the buddy rally. But we can see that there's still this, people are more inclined to be in favor of the ICO style of gameplay, or at least the update at the time when this form was filled out. 2020, it flips again. 2020 was release year. It wasn't as appealing to the general public as it had been with the buddy rally, but it was actually part of the Alpha 10 update was a slowdown of character movement, and that was sped back up again shortly after, and release time was considered to be slightly faster gameplay, more standard first person shooter, and then we move into the 50-50 split. So I have a theory which I can't prove with this data, but it is, did people purchase the game following a free weekend or some other trial of trying out the game? Because if they did, they may have tried the game, experienced the game, and enjoyed it during a period where the gameplay was either more akin to the Project Reality ICO update style of gameplay, or standard first-person shooter gameplay. And if they bought the game following actually trying it, that might go some way to explaining why there's such a strong shift and strong feelings. But I can't answer that question with the data that we have. And again, in the comment section below, you will find a link to a new form which has an extra question designed to answer that question about whether they bought the game following free weekend. So in conclusion, the variable most likely to accurately predict whether a player liked the ICO update is, unsurprisingly, whether or not they liked Project Reality, whether they played a decent amount of Project Reality. The year of purchase and the total playing hours are the strongest indicators of dislike of the ICO update. I found that surprising. I hope you find it surprising and interesting too. Don't forget the link down below to the new form if you want to add. If we get, say, 250 responses, I'll update this video, I'll update the presentation and see if we can find out anything new, see if we can reinforce what we've learned here, if the results are similar. Or it's been a couple of weeks, it's been 2-3 weeks now. Was this data an initial reaction, and have feelings changed as people have had more time with it? Have feelings calmed down a little bit, perhaps? If you've got any feedback, any thoughts, stick it in the comments below. Thanks very much for joining, guys. Take it easy. I'll see you next time.